we're in a much better place at this point in time than I think we were pre-Copenhagen. 4 messages, really. The first one is that business wants a framework that can drive investment, particularly, I guess, something that's long-term, and that sort of shows the direction of travel for businesses thinking about investing. We already have these national pledges, which are pretty vital, and a sense of what people are prepared to do, which is really helpful, and a sense of the evidence of sort of shared endeavour, which I think is really important to the business community. We've got the draft text, of course, sort of talking about transparency, accountability, and assessment of progress towards these targets. I think in the UK we have the Climate Change Act. It's pretty unique globally, although I know others are really interested. It's kind of a legally binding process for the government. It sets targets. We have progress along the way and measures those progress. And we have the Climate Change Committee monitoring that. What I think we would like to see from the talks in Paris, is in the absence of a legally binding agreement, more of that model, more countries then taking it domestically, providing legally binding frameworks domestically, a way of understanding the progress along the way, a sort of review and ratchet mechanism. The second point then is that in doing so, we'll need to address concerns around competitiveness over the long term. Pledges are vital in the longer term, and these should not remain static. But the truth is, at the moment, we're not quite on track. So we're going to need to see greater effort in future, particularly as the cost of certain technologies comes down. Then we'll need to be expecting more countries to do more, and we should be pressing them to do so. In the EU, we've led the way, and we've got really ambitious targets. But we also need to recognise that by leading the way, by having ambitious targets, we are imposing costs on industries that are using a lot of energy and trading internationally. So we want to be one step ahead, but we don't want to be 2 steps ahead and losing industry on the way. So we need to think about how we manage that. And I think that as we move forwards and as we see more ambition, hoping that we can create sort of more evenly distributed costs, and I think that will certainly help with our competitiveness position. I think critical to all of this will be carbon price that covers the major economies, as well as development of new technologies, particularly things like CCS. My third point then is we're going to need to remain realistic about what is possible now. Paris, in a way, is not a destination. It's just the next step in the journey. We need a commitment, a signposting, if we can't get a commitment to the role of carbon pricing. I don't think we're expecting it to be written large in the agreement, but it is going to be an important mechanism, and the more we can do to understand what individual countries are going to do to enforce a carbon price, I think the better. Similarly, I think in the, and Michael, you reflected this, we need to sort of accept the politics. It's not going to be a new legally binding agreement. That's not the place we're in. And we cannot expect developing nations to make commitments now that they think will be costly to them. So this is why finance and technology transfer are going to be so important to the discussions. My final point then is really about the interpretation of the deal itself, and in a way this is the most important, just the immediate sort of hours after the signing of the deal, the sort of immediate important battle for the interpretation. We're not going to endorse Paris as a CBI irrespective of the outcome, but I think we are in a better place than we were before Copenhagen, and I do think there are going to be some positives to take away. For the British business community, the assessment of this deal will be around a certain number of questions. So does this provide long-term clarity and direction of travel? And does it provide confidence that businesses can continue to invest in low carbon? If the answers to these are yes, then I think we'll have a really good deal in Paris.